Good evening. I'm John Rowe, Mayor of the City of Portsmouth, and I call the Tuesday, April 28, 2020 meeting of the Portsmouth City Council to order. The first order of business is to call the roll. And Madam Clerk, Deborah White, will you call the roll of the members of council that are participating in this meeting?
Yes, sir. Mr. Battle.
Here.
Mr. Clark.
Here.
Mr. Glover.
Here.
Mrs. Lucas Burke.
Here.
Mr. Moody.
Here.
Ms. Simmons.
I'm here.
Mayor Rowe.
Here. And Madam Clerk, how many members of council are participating?
7.
7. So we have 100%. In accordance with Governor Ralph Northam's declaration of a state of emergency due to the COVID-19 virus, which is Executive Order 51 that he issued on March the 12th, 2020, and the local declaration of emergency, which City Council ratified, the Portsmouth City Council, and due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which is continuing in the Commonwealth of Virginia, this is a meeting of the Portsmouth City Council, and it's being held by video conference on the 28th day of April 2020 without a quorum present in the City Council chamber in order to reduce the likely spread of the coronavirus. Each member of City Council is participating from their home, and I am in the City Council chamber. This meeting is being held in accordance with Portsmouth City Ordinance 2020-21. And it's also being broadcast, streamed on Facebook Live in real time. And this meeting will be archived to YouTube and available for the public to view after the completion of this meeting. With that, our first item of business is the consideration of the approval of minutes. And we have the minutes of a call meeting of March the 9th, 2020. The minutes of a call meeting of March 10, 2020. We have the minutes of a regular meeting of March 10, 2020. And we have the consideration of the approval of the minutes of a virtual meeting that council held on April the 14th, 2020. We'll consider the approval of these minutes with one motion. Is there such a motion?
Move adoption. Move adoption.
Second.
We have a motion that's been made by Councilman Moody, and I think Vice Mayor Lucas Burke seconded the motion. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? I hear none. We're ready for the question, and we'll do a roll call vote oral. If you're in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. If you're opposed, please indicate by saying nay. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Battle.
Aye.
Mr. Clark.
Aye.
Mr. Glover.
Aye.
Mrs. Lucas Burke.
Aye.
Mr. Moody.
Aye.
Ms. Simmons.
Aye.
Mayor Rowe.
Aye. Our next item of business is a series of public hearings. And just as April the 14th was the first ever virtual meeting of the Portsmouth City Council since the late 1700s, this is the first virtual public hearing. And Madam Clerk, were the appropriate notices given for these public hearings?
Yes, sir.
And did the public have an opportunity to provide comments for for these public hearings.
Yes, sir.
And how so? Will you explain?
They were able to call in to a number designated on our agenda, and they were also provided City Council's email address, and those comments have come in and been dispersed to the members of City Council.
So all the comments that have been received have been transcribed and sent to each member of council. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And they will become part of the permanent record and part of the minutes for this meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And they'll be available for the public to view once this meeting is concluded. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. With that, so that we can facilitate the public hearing, we'll run the public hearing through the course of this meeting. And at the end of the meeting, we'll adjourn the public hearings, close the public hearings. This will allow the public to continue to submit comments either electronically. Is that correct?
They can do it electronically by calling the designated number, or they can continue to email at the council's email address.
And those comments too will be included in the minutes. Is that correct?
Until the adjournment of tonight's meeting, yes, sir. Following that, they will just be public comments to the council.
Okay, with that, let's go to our public hearings. The first public hearing is item 20-106. And will you read the title of that public hearing?
Yes, sir. Public hearing to solicit citizen comments on the annual action plan.
Dr. Patton, this is the annual action plan that's related to our community development block grant funds. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor.
And Madam Clerk, how many comments did you receive thus far for this particular public hearing item?
None, sir.
Okay. Our next public hearing is 20-107A. And Madam Clerk, will you read the caption for that public hearing, please?
Yes, sir. Public hearing to consider the annual operating budget for fiscal year 2021.
And how many comments did you receive thus far pertaining to this public hearing?
4.
4. And they have been transcribed. And again, they'll become part of the minutes of this meeting and are made available to the public at the end of this meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. 20-107B. And will you read the title of that public hearing?
Yes, sir. Public hearing on the recommended 2021 through 2025 capital improvement program.
And Madam Clerk, how many comments did you receive in advance thus far on this particular public hearing item?
None.
None. Okay. And this brings us to our last of the public hearings, 20-107C. And will you read that public hearing notice, please?
Yes, sir. Public hearing on proposed changes to rates and levies for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021.
And how many comments have you received thus far in this public hearing?
2.
2. Okay, we'll keep the public hearings open during the course of this meeting so as to allow citizens to the opportunity to continue to provide their comments on these 4 public hearings electronically to City Council. And at the end of this meeting, I will close the public hearings. Any questions? Okay, we're now at item 20-108, and that's the consideration of the adoption of a certain ordinance. And Madam Clerk, will you read the caption of that ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. 20-108, adoption of an ordinance accepting a Shelter Plus Care Grant in the amount of $531,901 from the Department of Housing and Urban Development and appropriating said funds in the FY 2020 Grants Fund for use by the Department of Behavioral Healthcare Services to provide supportive services for chronically homeless and at-risk Portsmouth residents.
So that we can put this matter before us for our consideration, is there a motion to adopt this ordinance?
Move adoption.
Second.
There's a motion made by Councilman Moody, and I could not discern the second. Madam Clerk, do you have the second?
Councilman Clark.
Okay. We have a motion that's been duly made and seconded. We're ready for discussion. Does any member of council have anything to say, any discussion on the consideration of this motion? Hearing none, we're ready for the question, and this will be a roll call vote. The vote will be called by the city clerk. If you're in favor of the motion, please vote aye. Opposed, nay. Madam Clerk, will you call the vote, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Battle.
Aye.
Mr. Clark.
Aye.
Mr. Glover.
Aye.
Mrs. Lucas-Burke.
Aye.
Mr. Moody.
Aye.
Ms. Simmons.
Aye.
Mayor Rowe.
Aye. Our next item is item 20-109, which is the consideration of the adoption of another ordinance. And Madam Clerk, will you read the caption of that ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance accepting with appreciation a donation of $100 from Mary Proctor and appropriating said funds to the FY 2020 Grants Fund for use by the Department of Social Services to support operations of the Services Intake Unit.
So that we can put this matter before us for our consideration, is there a motion to adopt this ordinance?
Move for
Move for
adoption.
adoption.
Second.
Madam Clerk, did you get that?
Yes, sir.
Who made the
Motion
motion?
by Mr. Clark and second by Mrs. Lucas-Burke.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor to adopt this ordinance. Ready for discussion. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we're ready for the question. This will be a roll call oral vote. If you're in favor of the motion, please vote aye. If you're opposed, vote nay. Madam Clerk, will you call the vote, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Battle.
Aye.
Mr. Clark.
Aye.
Mr. Glover. Mr. Glover. Mrs. Lucas-Burke.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Moody.
Aye.
Ms. Simmons.
Aye.
Mayor Rowe.
Aye. And Madam Clerk, what was the vote?
7-0.
Okay, good. Which brings us to item 20-110, which is the consideration of the adoption of another certain ordinance. And Madam Clerk, will you read the caption of that ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance accepting CARES Act funds in the amount of $91,593.55 from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and appropriating said amount in the FY 2020 Grants Fund for use by the Department of Fire, Rescue, and Emergency Services.
Thank you, ma'am. So that we can consider this matter, is there a motion to adopt the ordinance?
Move for adoption.
Is there a second?
Second. Second.
And Madam Clerk, who made the motion?
Councilman Clark made the motion. It was second by Vice Mayor Lucasberg.
Good, thank you. We're ready for discussion on the motion, which is to adopt. Discussion? Hearing none, we're ready for the vote. This will be another oral roll call vote. If you're in favor of the motion, please vote aye. If you're opposed, nay. Madam Clerk, will you call the vote, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Battle?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Glover?
Aye.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Aye.
Mr. Moody?
Aye.
Ms. Simmons?
Aye.
Mayor Rowe?
Aye. And what was the outcome of that vote?
7-0.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Which brings us to item 20-111, which is the consideration of an ordinance accepting a grant. Will you read the caption of that ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance accepting a supplemental Next Generation 911 ESINet migration grant in the amount of $1,923.49 from the Virginia 911 Service Board and appropriating said sum in the FY 2020 Grants Fund for use by the Department of Information Technology.
So that we can consider this matter, is there a motion to adopt the ordinance?
So moved. Move for adoption.
Second.
Madam Clerk, you made the motion.
Councilwoman Simmons made the motion, and it was seconded by Mr. Clark.
Thank you. We have a motion that's been duly made and seconded. We're ready for discussion. Any discussion on the motion, which is to adopt? Hearing none, we're ready for the question. If you're in favor of the motion, please vote aye. If you're opposed, nay. And this will be a roll call oral vote. Madam Clerk, will you call the vote, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Battle?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Glover?
Aye.
Mrs. Lucasberg?
Aye.
Mr. Moody?
Aye.
Ms. Simmons?
Aye.
Mayor Rowe?
Aye. And Madam Clerk, what was the outcome of that vote, please?
Adopted 7-0.
Thank you. We're now at item 20-112, which is the consideration of the adoption of an ordinance accepting CARES Act CDBG funds. Will you read the caption of the ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance accepting CARES Act CDBG funds in the amount of $949,655 and appropriating said sum in the FY 2020 Community Planning and Development Fund budget for use in preventing, preparing for, and responding to COVID-19.
Before we put this matter before us, is there a procedure that we need to follow, Dr. Patton?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, there is a procedure, and under the discussion of the City Manager's report, I will share with you that this ordinance that is proposed for council consideration will appropriate the CARES Act funding. HUD is still in the process of preparing guidelines for use of the CARES CDBG funds. Once HUD has issued guidance, the city will seek public comment on a plan for use of the funds. After public comment has been received, the plan will be presented to City Council for your approval. There is a stipulation on the CARES Act is that it has to be related to COVID-19 and funds must be expended by December 21st, 2020.
With that explanation about the procedure, is it your recommendation that council adopt this ordinance tonight or carry it forward?
Council must adopt this action tonight, and then we will advise HUD that we have followed the proper procedure, and then we could proceed with the funds coming and following what I've shared in the discussion. So it's first adoption, then we can move. Thank you.
Good. With that, in order to put this matter before us for our consideration, there's our motion to adopt the ordinance.
Motion
Move
to
for
adopt.
adoption.
Sarah, second.
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 Madam Clerk, do we have a motion made by whom
Councilman Clark,
and seconded by?
Vice Mayor Lucasberg.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor, which is to adopt the ordinance. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we're ready for the question. Again, this will be an oral roll call vote. If you're in favor of the motion, please vote aye. If you're opposed, nay. Madam Clerk, will you call the vote, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Battle,
Aye.
Mr. Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Glover,
Aye.
Mrs. Lucasberg,
Aye.
Mr. Moody,
Aye.
Ms. Simmons,
Aye.
Mayor Rowe.
Aye. And Madam Clerk, what is the outcome of that vote?
Adopted 7-0.
Thank you, ma'am. Which brings us to item 20-113, which is the consideration of the adoption of another ordinance. And Madam Clerk, will you read the caption of that ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance transferring $251,690.22 from the Outdoor Recreation Enhancement line item of the FY 2020 Capital Improvement Fund budget to the FY 2020 Community Planning and Development Program Fund for the purpose of reimbursing CDBG funds previously authorized for the Portsmouth Sportsplex roof replacement, and further dedicating the funds so transferred for use in connection with park and playground improvements in Mount Hermon.
So that we can put this matter before us for our consideration, is there a motion to adopt the ordinance?
Move for adoption. Second.
Second.
And Madam Clerk, did you, who made the motion?
Motion by Councilman Glover and seconded by Councilman Battle.
We have a motion that's been duly made and seconded, which is to adopt the ordinance. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we're ready for the question. This will be another roll call oral vote. If you're in favor of the adoption of the motion, please vote aye. Opposed, nay. Madam Clerk, will you call the vote, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Battle,
Aye.
Mr. Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Glover,
Aye.
Mrs. Lucasberg,
Aye.
Mr. Moody,
Aye.
Ms. Simmons,
Aye.
Mayor Rowe.
Aye. And Madam Clerk, what was the outcome of that vote?
Adopted 7-0.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
We come to item 20-114, which is the consideration and adoption of another ordinance. And Madam Clerk, will you read the caption of that ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance establishing a personal property tax relief percentage of 53% for calendar year 2020 personal property tax bills.
So that we can put this matter before us for our consideration, is there a motion to adopt this ordinance?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
Yes,
Second.
sir.
And Madam Clerk, who made the motion?
Motion by Councilman Clark and seconded by Vice Mayor Lucasberg.
Thank you. We're ready for a discussion on the motion, which has been duly made and seconded, which is to adopt the ordinance. Hearing no discussions, comments, we're ready for the question. This will be another oral roll call vote. If you're in favor of the motion, please vote aye. Opposed, nay. And Madam Clerk, will you call the vote, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Battle,
Aye.
Mr. Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Glover,
Aye.
Mrs. Lucas Burke,
Aye.
Mr. Moody,
Aye.
Ms. Simmons,
Aye.
Mayor Rowe.
Aye. And Madam Clerk, what was the outcome of that vote?
Adopted 7-0.
Thank you, ma'am. We're now at item 20-115, which is the consideration of the adoption of another ordinance. And Madam Clerk, will you read the caption of that ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance transferring $899,639 from completed Portsmouth Public Schools project in the FY 2020 Capital Improvement Fund budget to ongoing and future Portsmouth Public School project in the FY 2020 Capital Improvement Fund budget.
So that we can put this matter before us for our consideration, is there a motion to adopt the ordinance?
Move for adoption.
Move for adoption.
Second.
Is there a second?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and who made the motion, Madam Clerk?
Motion by Vice Mayor Lucas Burke and seconded by Mr. Clark.
Good. We're now ready for discussion because we have a motion on the floor, which is to adopt this ordinance. Any discussion? The chair recognizes the city manager, Dr. Patton.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, I think it's important under discussion to place in the record that the following Portsmouth Public Schools CIP projects are complete. The West Haven Elementary roof replacement, the Brighton Elementary roof replacement, the Wilson High School roof replacement, Mount Herman Elementary roof and HVAC replacement, Woodrow Wilson High School PA system replacement, and the James Hurst Elementary / Churchland Primary and Intermediate School classroom renovations are all complete through the Capital Improvement Program. Residual funds from these projects would facilitate other school CIP projects. The Churchland High School HVAC replacement project is in phase 2B, 2C. Residual funds will provide for additional inspection as required and project contingencies. Portsmouth Public Schools have a number of CIP projects, such as the rehabilitation of the tennis courts as I.C. Norcom High School and Churchland High Schools that have been requested for current school year. Staff has worked with the Operations Division of Portsmouth Public Schools to prioritize and implement their CIP projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion, which is to adopt? Hearing none, we're ready for the question. This will be another roll call vote. And if you're in favor of the motion and want it adopted, please vote aye. If you're opposed, vote nay. And Madam Clerk, will you call the vote, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Battle,
Aye.
Mr. Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Glover,
Aye.
Mrs. Lucas Burke,
Aye.
Mr. Moody,
Aye.
Ms. Simmons,
Aye.
and Mayor Rowe.
Aye. And what was the outcome of that vote?
7-0 adopted.
Thank you, ma'am. We come to item 20-116, and this is the consideration of the adoption of an ordinance. And Madam Clerk, will you read the caption of that ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance, 1, accepting 2 resiliency grants in the total amount of $162,487.50 from the Virginia Department of Emergency Management and appropriating said funds in the FY 2020 Grants Fund. And 2, transferring $54,262.50 from the Stormwater Management Fund balance to the FY 2020 Grants Fund to serve as the local match for the resiliency grant.
Thank you, ma'am. So that we can put this matter before us for our consideration, is there a motion to adopt the ordinance?
Move for adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
And Madam Clerk, who made the motion?
Councilwoman Simmons made the motion, and it was seconded by Councilman Battle.
Thank you. We have a motion that's been duly made and seconded, which is to adopt the ordinance. We're ready for discussion on the motion. Hearing none, we're ready for the question. We'll do another oral roll call vote. If you're in favor of the motion, please vote aye. If you're opposed, nay. And Madam Clerk, will you call the vote, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Battle,
Aye.
Mr. Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Glover,
Aye.
Mrs. Lucas Burke,
Aye.
Mr. Moody,
Aye.
Ms. Simmons,
Aye.
Mayor Rowe.
Aye. And Madam Clerk, what was the outcome of that vote?
Adopted 7-0.
Okay, before we move to new business items submitted by council, I want to remind the public that we have 4 public hearings tonight that are continuing, and we're receiving comments through this meeting. The public may submit the comments electronically up until the adjournment of this meeting. Your comments will become part of the public record. After the conclusion and adjournment of this meeting, of course, the public can continue to communicate to members of council their thoughts and recommendations about the budget, but they will not become part of the public record for this meeting. Again, the public hearings that we have tonight, the 4, continue until the adjournment of this meeting. We're now at new business, item 20-117, items submitted by council. We have any items, Madam Clerk?
I have no items, excuse me. I
Mayor,
have no
I have
items for
one
council,
item.
but council members may have some there.
Did I hear Councilman Moody? Do you have an
Yes.
item, Council?
Yes, I have one, Mayor.
Thank you.
And this is from the retired police and firefighters. They sent an email to us earlier in the week withdrawing their request for a $1,500 supplement for all public safety personnel. And I think the word that they used, they wanted to pause that request in light of the I guess almost once in a lifetime fiscal situation due to the COVID-19. They are saying, though, if there's no objection, if funds become available at a later time this year, funds for public safety personnel in the form of either salary increase or bonuses, they would like for their request to be considered at that point in time, if that does materialize. If there are no objections to that, Mayor, I'd like for that to for a consensus to do that, to honor the request.
Members of council, you've heard the recommendation from Councilman Moody. Do we have a consensus that we, at a point in the future, if funds are available, that we consider this request? You want to put that in the way? Would it be appropriate, Madam Clerk, to have this as a motion, or can I get a consensus?
I would defer to the city attorney.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, consensus is fine.
I'm sorry.
It is appropriate to deal with this matter as a consensus of council. There's no need for a formal motion on that particular.
Can you repeat what he said? I didn't hear.
Yeah. Will you speak a little closer to your microphone on your computer, please?
I apologize. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of City Council. Given that what's being sought is a consensus of council, there is no need to have a formal motion on that particular matter.
Okay.
it would suffice to have the record reflect the consensus of council as part of this meeting.
And thank you so much. Is there any member of council that would object to considering this at the appropriate time in the future? Hearing none, that's what we'll do. Thank you, Councilman Moody. Any other
Mr.
items?
Mayor?
Council? Yes.
Yes. Mr. Mayor, I have an item.
Yeah. All right. I think I recognize the voice. Is that Councilwoman Simmons?
It is, sir. I just want to point out to the public, because of these virtual type meetings, something that I just figured out today. We have a wonderful app in the App Store called Portsmouth Connect. And so in order to follow the agenda tonight, while I'm looking at a meeting, I need an agenda. And I'm going to show you my phone. Under Portsmouth Connect, the very front page has Agenda Center. And if you push Agenda Center, it will give you all the meetings that are up. And that's how I followed the meeting tonight. So it's a great way to do this on your phone easily if you're watching a virtual meeting. So just share that tip.
But Mayor, I have one additional item.
Councilman Moody, I'll come back to you. Any other member of council before we come back? Okay, Councilman Moody.
Mayor, as you know, we haven't been having our public work sessions for obvious reasons, but that's where we normally, especially during the budget time, we share thoughts, we offer suggestions, we have interaction with one another at that point in time. Why can't, I guess my question is, are we going to be able to have a virtual work session where we can communicate among ourselves to reference the budget? I'm sure a lot of us are kind of biting at the bit to offer suggestions, to ask questions, and do the normal due diligence that's required of finalizing the budget.
That's a good point, and I was thinking the very same thing earlier. And I think we have the Monday, the first meeting in Monday is still in May. Excuse me, the second let me back up. The second Monday, which is our first Monday meeting in May, is still on the calendar, is it not? And so that would not be a call meeting per se. Could we make that a virtual work session on the budget?
Great.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's plan to do that. What time? We'll do it at 5 because it's scheduled at 5. Yes, everybody in agreement with that. So that meeting stands. We'll make it a budget virtual work session. I encourage you, and I know you've been doing this, the members of council, if you have questions about the budget, please communicate that to the city manager. And city manager, would you share everybody's concerns with the other members of council so that we are all cross-pollinated?
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, I will share them as we have had the one-on-ones and questions that have been asked or more information from a council member have been sent to all council members.
All right. Very good. Good point. Well, our next meeting will remain the second Monday in May. And Madam Clerk, what date is that? You have it?
May the 11th.
May the 11th.
At 5
And that meeting will start at 5 o'clock, and there'll be a work session on the budget.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other items submitted by council?
Mayor, while we're considering times for meetings, while this meeting was held at 7 p.m. because we advertised the public hearing for 7, would there be any objection from council members that the May 12th meeting be at 5 p.m.?
You heard the city clerk. so that we can officially take action on that. Is there a motion to start the Tuesday, May 9th meeting at 5 o'clock? Did I get the date right?
No,
May 12th.
I did.
May 12th.
May,
Well, okay. May 11th is the public work session. May 12th is the Tuesday meeting.
I don't have a calendar in front of me, so I apologize if I confused members of council or the public. We'll have a work session on May the 11th that will start at 8, which happens to be the second Monday in May.
It will start at 5 p.m.
Thank you. I can see that. Then we'll have our regular meeting that will start on May the 12th at 5. If we have a motion to set the time at 5, is there such a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, the motion is to set our May 12th regular meeting at 5 p.m. Any discussion on the motion? I apologize for the confusion of the dates. This will be a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, when your name is called, if you're in favor of the motion, please vote aye. If you're opposed, nay. Will you call the vote, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Battle,
Aye.
Mr. Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Glover,
aye.
Mrs. Lucas Burke,
Aye.
Mr. Moody,
Aye.
Ms. Simmons,
Aye.
Mayor Ruff.
Aye. This concludes our agenda. We'll come back to our public hearings, which are 4. Public hearing on our annual action plan, public hearing to consider the annual operating budget for fiscal year 2021, a public hearing on the recommended 21 through 25 capital improvement program, and the last public hearing on the proposed changes to rates and levies for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021. And with that, I will bring those public hearings to a close at 7:43 p.m. These public hearings are now closed. There's nothing further for us to consider this evening. I thank everybody for their patience as we venture down the path of virtual meetings. And just in summation, City Attorney Solomon Ashby, this meeting confirms all the provisions of the state code. Is that correct?
You are correct, Mayor, in accordance with state code and the ordinance passed by City Council.
Thank you. With that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.